thank you so much for allowing us all to gather here tonight, and just I pray that you bless this time. I pray that you just let this be a time where we can speak your truth, Lord, and that can be a time of learning to those hearing. And I just pray that you would use this time, and thank you, Lord, for the blessing it is to be here this evening. In your name I pray. Amen. So tonight's course, like I said, we'll be talking on the 5 components of an abolition bill. We have the 5 tenets of abolitionism are the foundations of our public theology. So now we will address what abolitionism looks like when applied to legislation. So if you have the Rescue Those pamphlet, we only had 2 on the back table, but if you need one of those, do you all need one of those? I think they need one. But so if you are looking in the Rescue Those pamphlet, we are going to be on pages 24 through 26. And in the Are You an Abolitionist book, we will be on pages 11 through 21. So I'm going to give you the 5 components that we'll be covering tonight, and then we are going to kind of split it up between the 3 of us. So component 1 is from conception. Component 2 is no exemptions. Component 3 is equal protection. Component 4 is defy tyrants. And component 5 is repeal or supersede statutes. So those are the 5 components that we are going to go over this evening. And, well, let's just dive on into the first one. So we'll look at component 1, from conception.
John, is that better? Okay. And I may add, you don't have to get too bogged in on the pamphlets right now. It's more of a reference for later on to review. The slides should keep you more at pace of where we're at. If you try to follow us through the pamphlet, it may get confusing. So hopefully that's helpful.
So, component 1, from conception. First and foremost, an abolition bill establishes that there is no right to murder a preborn human at any stage. An abolition bill does not regulate which preborn human beings are old enough to be protected by law. It outlaws abortion itself. So any law regarding the legality of abortion which fails to outlaw the murder of preborn human beings from conception implicitly or explicitly legitimizes the murder of some children and is therefore iniquitous and entirely unacceptable.
Okay, so we'll watch a real short clip, about 1 minute long. Keep your religion out of politics. And John, I think I may have had those out of order.
Here's why we won't keep religion out of politics. Cue screaming leftist. The separation of church and state is found in the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. This was to avoid a federal state church like the Church of England or the Roman Catholic Church in Spain or Portugal. Individual states were even allowed to have a state church well after the adoption of the Constitution, as the First Amendment only restricts Congress, not state government. But what is often meant by this is that religious motivation must be kept out of lawmaking. This is an absurd proposition. Everyone has a religious motivation or code of ethics in the creation of law. If it were true that we must not have religious motivation, no person could make any law. Without the proposition that man is made in the image of God, laws protecting man are reduced to absurdity. This is used as a battering ram against Christian motivations, while atheist assumptions about the world and the nature of man are accepted and celebrated. A lawmaker cannot separate themselves from their motivation for making law. It is impossible, and it is in no way required in the Constitution.
It had a lot of skips to it. Okay. Sam, you're up next.
So this next component is that there are no exceptions whenever it comes to writing an abolition bill. An abolition bill does not leave any preborn humans unprotected by law. Unlike most pro-life bills which allow for exceptions, 3 exceptions in particular are present in many pro-life bills, like the rape exception, incest or disability exceptions, and life or health of the mother exception. So, babies conceived in rape. Rape is a terrible crime. It should be a capital crime. And those who commit this heinous act should face swift justice. And victims of rape should receive the support of their families and communities. But we must not allow the murder of a child for the sins of the father. Babies conceived in rape are still made in the image of God and deserve equal protection under the law. And then the next one, babies conceived in incest or babies with disabilities. Children conceived by incest are human beings, and the fact that a child might have a disability does not justify murdering them. This exception for abortion is so patently evil, absurd, and heartless toward the preborn child as well as born people with disabilities that it is hard to believe anyone makes it. And then that third exception, babies whose mother is in danger. And I think this is one that weighs on the heartstrings of many Christians, and I think it's incorrectly done. So regarding situations where the life of the mother is in jeopardy, there is no need for the intentional murder of the child. There are cases where the child must be delivered early, and in those cases, the child may have a lower probability of survival. It's very unfortunate. But intentional murder must not be allowed as an option. We don't murder the child and then take it out. We could do an early delivery and do everything possible for the life of that child, but there's no reason to murder their baby and then retrieve it. So, doctors must be healers, not killers. They've taken a Hippocratic oath to do no harm. Abolition bills treat these emergency situations like the triage situations that they are. The doctor must treat both patients like human beings. Doctors are fulfilling their rightful role if they are doing all that they can to preserve the most human lives that they can. That does not mean murdering the baby can be used as an answer for any pregnancy complication, but it does mean that doctors in triage situations must do what they can to preserve as many lives as possible and should not face any penalty as long as they are doing so in good faith.
A simple phrase that for a simple thing we like to say is punish the criminal, like punish the rapist, not the child. And that's biblical. And so I just wanted to add that in there because it's something that will be very useful because there's times when rape will come up as a reason for letting abortion be present, and a very simple answer is don't punish the baby, punish the rapist. So.
Yeah, we could even go farther, you know, how come society wants to murder the child? The death penalty should be for the rapist, not the child. So my talk will be on component 3, equal protection. If abortion is murder, and we all know it is, it ought to be criminalized as such. Abolitionists believe that abortion must be totally abolished through a law which makes preborn children equal under the law. Equal protection for preborn children would mean that preborn children would be afforded all the same legal protection that all of us enjoy. It would mean that nobody, not father, mother, doctor, or anyone else is permitted to participate in the murder of a child in the womb. It would mean the available penalties for murdering any other person would be available for anyone found guilty of knowingly murdering a preborn human. Equal protection would not mean that every mother or father who murders their children would receive murder charges. There are all sorts of mitigating factors that might lessen or eliminate the penalty for an aborting parent in any given situation. Some women are victims who are coerced into having abortion and will not face charges. Some will deserve second or third degree murder charges based on circumstances. Some will receive immunity by testifying against the abortionist or pill trafficker, the big fish, so to speak. Each person charged with murder by abortion would receive all the same due process and opportunities for appeal that all defendants receive. In accordance with the Alaska Constitution, Article 1, Section 7. This is the abolitionist position. Put simply, equal protection is the American legal term for the biblical principle of impartiality. Leviticus 19:15 commands to Israel's judge, and I quote, "You shall do no injustice in court. You shall not be partial to the poor or defer to the great, but in righteousness shall you judge your neighbor." Equal protection is the fulfillment of this principle. The 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution reads, "No state shall deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws." This means that every state is prohibited from separating out classes of people who get varying levels of legal protection. Everyone must be treated as legal equals. Properly understood and applied, the 14th Amendment prohibits any state from allowing crimes like homicide to be permitted against preborn human beings. Further prohibits states from treating preborn children differently under law. On the other hand, political strategies
And it wasn't until
in
I
the pro-life
attended the National Right
establishment
to
are
Life
committed
Convention.
to a strategy of giving automatic immunity in all cases to the mother who murdered her child or has murdered them. So we're going to watch another short video, and this is of an interview of Carol Tobias. She is the president of National Right to Life, and this clip was edited from the video, The Fatal Flaw.
And it wasn't until I attended the National Right to Life Convention in 2017, I got an upfront glimpse at what these national organizations were doing to combat this great evil of our age, this modern day Holocaust. And I was absolutely shocked. I remember hearing from the mouth of the president for the National Right to Life, Carol Tobias, what they actually believed about women that killed their own children. If the dignity and the value of the unborn child has been established, and we know that, what does that say about the mother who goes through with an abortion? Is there a logical connection to be made there that there needs to be that same demand for justice for that child? Which, do you see?
Oh, no, I understand the question. The pro-life movement has a lot of women who are active in it who have had abortions. And they very much argue that the mother who got the abortion is also a victim.
She said explicitly, "We've never seen mothers who kill their own children as guilty, but as victims." It was coming from their own mouths, and I couldn't believe my ears.
No mother can ever face any legal penalty for abortion, no matter how many of her preborn children she intentionally murders. This strategy is pursued in an attempt to garner greater public support for legislation. And it does. Not only does the preborn, the pro-life establishment pursue this strategy, in their legislation, they oppose abolition bills, which allow the possibility of legal penalties for mother who murder their children. If you remember from the week before, we have spoken about the Abolition of Abortion in Louisiana Act, which passed through the Louisiana House Criminal Justice Committee by a vote 7-2. That was in April of 2022. Every Republican supported that measure. But on the day of the floor vote, 76 pro-life organizations led by the National Right to Life published a letter. And if you were here on the first day, I handed those letters out. If you weren't here that day, come and see me. I'll make sure you get the complete letter. That letter was sent out to every state legislator in the country, asking pro-life legislators to oppose any bill that allows prosecution for mothers who murder their children. And I'm quoting here, "Turning women who have abortions into criminals is not the way. We ask you to continue to act with love and compassion towards abortion vulnerable women. We urge you to reject any measure that seeks to criminalize women who have abortions," unquote. Carol Tobias, president of National Right to Life Committee, stated, and I quote, "They are going to say, look, all of you women, you've had an abortion. You're going to end up in jail. Do you want your daughter in jail? Do you want your sister or neighbor in jail?" Bold-faced lie. Am I to believe that the president of the largest pro-life organization does not know the U.S. Constitution, has an ex post factor which clearly states legislators are prohibited from passing laws which retroactively criminalize behavior? If you're wondering, the Alaska Constitution has an ex post factor in its constitution as well. Now going back to Louisiana, how did all of this affect the Abolition of Abortion in Louisiana Act, which passes the House vote? All but 2 Louisiana Republican representatives who had previously supported the Abolition Act turned and opposed it. The bill was defeated, and mothers continue to murder their children in Louisiana today. Pro-life organizations are who we're fighting against. This was not the action of a rogue pro-life organization. This was nearly every pro-life organization with political influence that worked to keep abortion legal in Louisiana, as they have done in Oklahoma, Texas, Indiana, Idaho, Missouri, Kentucky, Alaska, and numerous other states. Former Oklahoma Senator and abolitionist Joseph Silk on the floor stated, rather than making political calculations, abolitionists simply proclaim the truth that abortion is murder and must be abolished without shying away from any of the perceived consequences of that position. We demand justice through equal protection of the law for all image bearers of God. Equal justice and abolition of abortion are thwarted, thank you, are thwarted by the pro-life movement's refusal to fully criminalize abortion. Their insistence on providing aborting mothers immunity in all cases is a clear violation of God's prohibition of partiality and his mandates to do justice. This is enough to reject their position, but for three further reasons, the parental exemption to abortion prosecution is fundamentally unjust and unloving towards unborn children, abortion-minded parents, and the culture as a whole. Three reasons to reject the pro-life position: providing immunity to the mother, meaning legal do-it-yourself abortion. Penalties are deterrence. Roe v. Wade rallied on this very inconsistency. So first one, parental exemptions. Can I have you read? I'm starting to.
So number one, parental exemptions create a right to DIY abortions. Providing automatic immunity in all cases to mothers who have their children murdered means that self-managed abortions are legal. In fact, Carrie Sitstra, a board member of the National Abortion Federation, published an article in the New York Times in 2019 calling pro-life and pro-choice people to work together toward a self-managed abortion industry that is allowed under pro-life legislation. Quote, "We can work to fully decriminalize self-induced abortions. Decriminalize. This is an area where all Americans, including pro-life Americans, can work together. The pro-life movement has insisted for decades that women should not be prosecuted for self-abortion. Working together to decriminalize self-managed abortion will curb these risks." Do you hear it? I mean, if you replace that with any other crime, you would be appalled. So if a person decided to DIY rape somebody in the safest way possible for him, would we make that okay? Would we ever decriminalize that? I submit that we would not.
And to point out here, this is a pro-choice individual who writes this article and is recognizing themselves, the pro-life movement, we're in agreement. Pro-choice, pro-life, we agree. And she's basing it on the fact that we do not want the mother to be criminalized. So come, let's join together. And that is what her article is about. Even the pro-choice movement recognizes the pro-life stance, and they want to join together.
Can you hear me? Here we go. So that evolution is happening fast. Mail order abortion pill services and online abortion counseling services have been operating in countries where abortion is legal. It is illegal for years. Fearing abortion becoming illegal in the United States, some are opening up shop here. Women on Web and Aid Access are shipping abortion pills in the United States. An organization called Self-Managed Abortion, Safe and Supported, which also is called SAS, is training American women how to kill their preborn children on their own. Many surveys show an explosion in Google searches for self-induced abortion since 2015. After the overturn of Roe versus Wade, self-managed abortion has absolutely skyrocketed, and this has been shown in the data. And you have a link.
And actually, it's an article. I didn't post the link here, but if you want more information, get with me and I will send the link. I'll also, on our group, I will put the link in there that you can go ahead and read.
Right, so we're not just saying things, we have the resources to show you. So while we don't have the complete picture of the data regarding self-managed abortion, what we can know for sure is that abortion has hardly been curtailed by the overturn of Roe. So there's a massive celebration for the overturn of Roe, and most abolitionists were like, okay, great.
Nothing.
It didn't do anything. It's actually easier to do it now.
It's improved. And
Prune that tree just a little bit more.
Yep.
Slightly healthier. So hotlines which help mothers skirt the law while self-inducing abortions, like the Self-Induced Abortion Legal Team, are already operating here as well. These hotlines, working in tandem with abortion pill-to-your-door companies, make self-managed abortion easily obtainable to everybody. And it's not as if we could simply cut off the supply of abortifacient drugs. Many of these drugs, such as misoprostol, have other uses and are not difficult to obtain. They're not only used for abortions, they're used for other things as well. And it's easy to get. As Sietstra explains, we should start seeing misoprostol as a prophylactic drug that deserves a place in our medicine cabinets. We should ask our clinicians for prescriptions before we need it, just in case. So to oppose equal protection for preborn children is to support the legalization of self-managed abortion. And let's not fool ourselves into believing that any state in the United States has completely outlawed abortion.
You're doing great.
Okay, I will continue. Okay.
I'll help you out. So
It's number 2, but number 2 of what? Just for my
yeah,
clarity.
yep. The 3 reasons to reject the pro-life movement.
This is the second reason to reject the pro-life movement. Number 2, penalties are deterrents. The penalty for people who steal don't completely get rid of theft, obviously. But they do deter many would-be thieves. One of the few things on which pro-choice and pro-life people agree is that abortion is often a difficult decision. While some commit murder without ever even considering keeping their baby, it's a close call for most. That call would no longer be a close one if homicide charges were added to one side of the scale. At the 2020 Abolition Now conference, abolitionist Cheryl Calley told the audience that her child would be with her today had equal justice been provided to preborn children at the time of her abortion. She said, and I quote, "If I were not exempt from being prosecuted for murdering my own child, I would not have gone into Planned Parenthood at 15 years old and killed my baby." Abolitionist Jill Robbins echoed Cheryl, and I quote, "If only abortion had not been an option, how different things might have played out for my life and for sure for the life of my child who didn't get a chance to live his life. Righteous laws restrain evil behavior. So, removing immunity for mothers who choose abortion doesn't mean we'll charge 1 million mothers and fathers who made excruciating decisions with murder. It means the vast majority will never murder their children in the first place. The law is a tutor, and it should be teaching us that murdering our babies is wrong. Penalties are a deterrent. Of course, there are often difficult circumstances which lead to abortion. We should have compassion for people in those circumstances, which is exactly why we must not leave the murderous, soul-destroying option of self-induced abortion on the table for them. We must make sure the law teaches them the right things and deters murder. Pro-life laws, which don't criminalize abortion, provide no reason not to have an abortion.
So the third reason to reject pro-life position is Roe v. Wade rallied on this very inconsistency, thinking that it strengthens their case for automatic immunity for mothers and fathers who murder their preborn. Pro-life leaders often highlight the fact that pre-Roe abortion bans provided immunity. This is true, but what they don't know or simply do not want to acknowledge is that these immunities are a huge part of the court's decision for forced legal abortion on the states in the very first place. And I'll interject. As states, we could have just ignored, nullify.
We've done it before.
Marijuana. We get to there. Yeah. In Roe, the state of Texas argued that the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause provided unborn human beings protection against murder, just like the law protected everyone else against murder. However, Texas pro-life laws gave full immunity to parents who had their children murdered. According to Justice Blackmun, explained in a footnote 54 of the Roe v. Wade decision, that these immunities legally undercut the anti-abortion case. And I quote, "There are other inconsistencies between the 14th Amendment status and the typical abortion status. Excuse me. It has already been pointed out that in Texas, the woman is not the principal or an accomplice with respect to an abortion upon her. If the fetus is a person, why is the woman not the principal or the accomplice? Further, the penalty for criminal abortion specified in Article 1195 is significantly less than maximum penalties for murder prescribed by Article 1257 of the Texas Penal Code. If the fetus is a person, may the penalties be different?" It's what gave us Roe. Blackmun was essentially saying, if pro-lifers actually think preborn human beings are the same as all of us, why don't pro-lifers classify abortion as murder? And why do pro-lifers give full immunity to people who have preborn human beings murdered? If pro-lifers don't treat abortion like murder, why should the court?
Okay, is he a conservative or is he?
That's a good question.
Thanks. Well, I'm just thinking like even our pro-life laws are laughable to people in the court. They obviously don't make sense to them.
Yeah. My guess is he is, but don't quote me. These historic pro-life laws are not a good standard to try to return to, but egregious mistakes that must be learned from. We must demand the full criminalization of abortion as murder. Even with Roe now overturned, the principle still applies. Giving mothers immunity from prosecution undercuts abolition by allowing self-managed abortion, and it undercuts the whole anti-abortion argument with its logical inconsistencies. Pro-life laws that provide immunity to the mother do nothing to criminalize the act of murdering a preborn human being. All they do is criminalize the act of helping a mother murder her preborn son or daughter and allow for self-managed abortion to continue. We must demand equal protection for preborn human beings. That means the same level of legal protection for preborn human beings that everyone else gets, everyone that's sitting here. That means rejecting sinful partiality in laws. That means the criminalization of abortion as murder. And so this is a good stopping point for a break. Our computer crashes, and then we end up with 2 different YouTube. So we're going to go ahead and break now, and John's going to do his wonders to baby the computer system, and we'll be back. So I think John's asking for 5 minutes. Is that correct? Thumbs up, 5 minutes. Okay, so we'll take a break.